Good day from WA. Hi, this is Julie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm starting a new project. I'm going to be doing an altered book. I didn't do an introduction at the time because I wasn't sure I would actually publish the video. I wasn't sure if it would work out. I just sort of thought, oh, I'll just stick the camera on just in case. And I'm quite happy with the way it turned out. So I thought I would come back on and do an introduction. So this is what we're heading for. I have a lot of images that I have cut out for Margarete Miller and then don't use, and I end up with this basket full of images this is just the animal basket. I have the floral basket and other baskets of items that didn't make it into the Margarete Miller collages, and I just feel like I'd really like to use up those images and also to use images that perhaps I wouldn't normally use. Because in this Antiquarian Sticker book and the Extraordinary Things to Cut Out, we all know there's plenty of images. Just opening the page here to randomly, and good page to pick, randomly, almost every image on here I wouldn't perhaps normally use on Margarete Miller. I want to make it like a purely collage book, and yeah, just have some fun with it. Do maybe some new techniques. Try out things I haven't tried before that I can't really do when I'm doing Margarete Miller. There's a little witch in there, and when I stuck the witch in, I thought I could make this my Halloween journal, which is on the page somewhere. There's going to be something which is either quirky or weird that I might get from these books, because there's just so many of them that I wouldn't normally use in a journal, and I just think quirky and weird goes perfectly with Halloween. So if you haven't seen, I've put up a video of a full flip through of the Antiquarian Sticker book just recently, and there is also a full flip through of the Things to Cut Out and Collage, and yeah, there are definitely some very strange things in there, just to make collaging and art journaling really easy. So that's my plan. This is the book that I've altered. There's loads of these books around. So I altered the book. I glued some pages, took some pages out, glued some pages together, and I have 2 or 3 more copies of this book. So once it's full, I can actually use another one. So the images or the things that you might need for this project, I just used scrapbook paper that I don't use generally. So I use this particular one. My first spread in this book, I decided to go black and white because black and white's the easiest way to kind of like start, not have to think about color. So I just had some black and white images which I fussy cut. I then went to my scraps box of my napkins, and I literally pulled out scraps from here, which I had been practicing stamping onto, you know, the backing napkins. This was the backing napkin from this one. So I've used the original napkin, kept the backing, and it's going to make great background. Like, if you're like me, I'm not really an artist. I'm not really very experienced at all. I will say minimal experience. So sometimes, you know, when I try to do an art page, it just makes a mess. So I find collaging and gesso and that kind of thing is easier to control how the page turns out. And the tools that I use, gesso is so useful, but if you don't, for the moment, you can use watered down white acrylic, but I would recommend getting cheapest, largest bottle of gesso that you can find. This was, I think, $10. I haven't used this one yet. I just use this one because it's pretty. My other one's almost used up and really horrible looking. So the other one is what you'll see in the video. It would be handy to have some matte gel. I use this Liquitex, but I've now found a cheaper one. So I'm just using this one up, but then I'll be switching to this one that I got from Riot Online, I think. And so this was half the price of this one. Clear gesso, seal everything in and give the page some tooth. So you may not have all of these art supplies, but just use what you have. Once I've dried the top layer, I kind of iron it. So by heating it and rolling it, I'm pressing the images into the page and flattening the page at the same time. So I do find a brayer useful, but if not, you don't need that. No one else does that. I haven't noticed anyone doing that. I picked up these in an op shop. It's the first time I used them, but I just used those around the hard one around the edge. I just have some graphite pencils. A black watercolor pencil would work, and I wasn't too sure. I've used this because it's nice and easy, but you can just use a normal watercolor brush to activate the watercolor pencils. You'll need a soft brush for your gel medium to put down the napkin and the images. So totally up to you what you would what book you would use and what size and everything like that. But I chose this book because once it opens up, I want it to be flat. I don't like having to hold the page down. So I really think that's kind of it. Cut out anything extraneous. I've double speeded the video. Join in with me and think about whether you want to do you don't have to do it Halloween, but I just added the witch and that's enough for me. I'm happy to just have a touch of Halloween. Hardly Halloween, almost Halloween. Maybe I'll do almost Halloween because I'm doing it early. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to call it. You'll know because you'll see it on the video what I've called it. But anyway, that's my concept for this this book and I like the size, 11 by 8. So a good size. If you'd like to see more of these kinds of videos, collage videos, very easy art journal videos, then let me know in the comments below and I will continue to video the almost Halloween images that I stick in this book. Look forward to doing some more and sharing it with you. So on with the video. Thank you. So I just used glue stick for the main part of gluing the main page on, and used some art glitter glue around the edges to keep the page from lifting at the edges, and not using not using art glitter glue in the middle of the page because it does tend to make it very stiff and hard to work with. Here I just used an old photocopy of a map from decades ago. It's in my genealogy box, and I just roll it onto the page, make sure it's well stuck down, and because it would have been either photocopied or laser printed, it won't smudge. So that's something to think about if you try to use digitals. You'll either have to seal the digital before you use it, or use laser or photocopy type ink or powder, because any inkjet will smudge, so it can be quite annoying to use inkjet paper or printables in sort of art journal projects. So that's why I've used sort of scrapbook papers and images from books, magazines, and the printed books that you get from Google and that kind of thing, so no smudging. And of course any ink that I use, I don't think I used ink on this one, no I didn't, but if I did use ink I would use archival ink. I tried not to think too much about placement of the images. I was just of the background. I was just trying to just put stuff down and not be too sort of precious about it. I did seem to like having those darker pieces in the corners, and here I was adding gesso. I started off with neat from the gesso tub. Don't add too much water. I do add a little bit of water to thin it down and make it kind of a wash later, but if you add too much water your pages will start to buckle, so just kind of like almost dry brush the gesso on. I decided I wanted a darker corner in here instead of just that sort of plain white, so I just added an extra piece, and glad I did, because in the end these grey patches ended up looking like thunderstorms, but it was totally accidental. Ended up creating a kind of a weather pattern. And the idea I had with this napkin was that the little pattern would double as a kind of scrub behind the grass of the zebras, so that it didn't just look patchy. And yeah, it kind of worked once it finished. I used the glue stick to put down this napkin because I wanted it to stay in one piece and not accidentally tear, so I wanted to keep it sort of neat and flat, and glue stick makes it easier to glue down the napkin. But I'd still add the gel medium on top, but it's better to dry it first before you put the gel medium on top, and that way then you don't have as much risk of it tearing. I keep trying out the pieces just to see how the background's going and see whether it needs some more, but you can see the background still needs some work. So I'm going to add this napkin, which was just the backing napkin left over from one of the cwplanner projects, and just using the wet brush to get rid of the straight edges. I had used a straight edge on the project originally, but if you try and glue that down onto a art journal page, you'll be able to see it. I've tried. I thought, oh, it'll be fine, but no, you can see the lines, so it is better to tear out the napkin, and you can do that quite easily with a wet brush. So these pieces I had just stamped, the little swirly things I had stamped, and now I can just put them on the page wherever. It doesn't matter where they are, where they go really, just here and there. Dot them around, and later on, it looks a bit weird right now, I have to say, but gesso is the cure-all for art journaling. It really is. It just brings the page together. But I'm just using the matte medium to put these pieces down, because it doesn't matter if they accidentally tear or change their shape. So, and then I decided I wanted something else in the middle at the top there, because it just seemed a bit bare, and I was thinking about a flower, but I didn't think a flower really fit the picture, and I couldn't really think of where I had a black and white flower. So I remembered I'd looked at this napkin earlier, so I grabbed a piece of that, and I didn't worry that I broke off his antenna. I'll add that in later. And he looks very bright on the page, or very bold, but I'll push him into the background a little bit later on. I actually wanted him flying in the same direction that the zebras were looking, but I couldn't get his angle to sort of work, so I had him kind of like flying off the page. That whatever the zebras are all looking at, he's flying away from. That was my theory with that. Now I'm going to go back in with the white gesso again to go over the last bits of napkin that I put down, and just tidy up any areas that I think don't look right. And I'll definitely be going over the black butterfly. So I started off with the neat gesso, but I didn't want the big patches of white, so I've just dipped my brush in water, dabbed it into the lid to thin out the gesso, so now it's more like a whitewash, and that gives you much more control as to how much coverage you get. You can always add more gesso, but it's much harder to take the gesso off. I wanted to get rid of the strong words around the butterfly, so I went back to the neat gesso to really reduce that text so it's hardly noticeable. And once I was happy with the background, I glue the two pieces on with matte medium, and then just make sure that they're well glued down, because I don't want them popping up while I'm going to be working on them a little bit later on. So just sometimes the medium dries a little bit, so I just added extra, and I was off camera when I glued him down, so I'll cut that bit out. I chose the hand and the witch from the Antiquarian Sticker book, and the bird came from, I don't know, a bird book from somewhere else. But I just want him to be sort of riding the back, and I'm quite happy that everything's kind of like the wrong size. That's what I kind of was going for, was, you know, the giant bird, the giant butterfly, the little witch. Yeah, just not keeping everything to proportional size intentionally. And I just used the sticker, the back of the sticker, to put my placement, because obviously the sticker would have had a sticky back. And then I'll keep that backing because that might be handy to trace around. I think the witch is pretty cute. I quite like it. I didn't think of that. I only found the witch when I was looking through the sticker book and thought, well, she's black and white. She's quite, looks like she's, flying in one direction. I'd love to know what it is they're all looking at and where they're all heading. Any ideas? So yeah, clear gesso over the top of everything because I don't know what I'm going to do to the picture or to the page from now on. The clear gesso just helps to seal it. It looks like it's like giving it a milky coat, but that dries clear. It does have a kind of a slightly chalky texture, which doesn't feel good to the hand, but you can't see it, and it just provides tooth for colored pencils or whatever kind of media you want to use on top. It's easier to work with than the gel medium. Although if you press too firmly, because there's quite a few layers, occasionally it sort of digs into the page a little bit. But I just go over that later with a brush and the tip of the pencil. These are aquarelle graphite pencils, so they're water soluble. And I start off with the lightest of the range that I had because I wanted to test it out first and make sure it wasn't too dark, because I made the mistake in the past of ending up with sort of black mud all over my page and I really didn't like it. So I start off with either the HB or the 2B, and kind of like when I'm comfortable with that one, move to the darker one. So I've basically got from HB to 8B, I think, 6 or 8. And just so with this grass, I just keep adding another layer. And actually that works out quite well in the end because the different pencils come out differently when I add water, I didn't know that would happen. So yeah, I've used these pencils before, but not usually. Oh no, actually these ones came with those, came in the op shop. So I really only had black watercolor pencil before. So this is the first time I've had these graphite aquarelle pencils, like a whole range of them. So I do like having the HB, the 2, the 4, the 6, and the 8. I think that's what I've got. It does give you much more choice than just the black watercolor pencil. Yeah, the black watercolor pencil sometimes I just find is a bit too dark, which I've used it in the past. So yeah, I like these aquarelles. They're nice. You can really decide how much shading you want, and I'm just sort of really drawn to doing this style of shading around animals and flowers and things like that, to sort of give them almost like a 3D effect. Been doing a little bit on my Margarete Miller pages, and yeah, it just sort of makes here and there, it just makes them stand out. So I'm starting off with the lighter one. Doesn't make a huge difference. It's okay, but I end up going over them all again, I think, with the 6B, just adding that antenna. I don't go around the butterfly because I want him to stay in the distance. So I've kind of got 3 distances. I've got the lighter sort of texture in the background, and then the butterfly, and then the images on top. So it does give it a bit of, I think it gives it a bit of depth. And then I'm just using that water brush, which you don't have to use a water brush. Sometimes I don't like them because you get blobs of water, and I did get a blob of water somewhere, and then you end up with this sort of flood, which I didn't necessarily want. You have more control with normal brushes, but this was the one I used. And then just if you want to add a bit extra, you can just put the brush onto the pencil and then just dab off anything you don't want with a dry wipe. Just, yeah. And look at the way that it worked with the grass. The various pencils show up differently, so it worked out really well. I was really pleased with the grass, and even while I was doing it, it was like magic, seeing what's going to come up as you add the water. So this was fun. I had no stress with this one. It was easy. And that's why I'm calling it a easy beginner's journal page, because sticking down papers and napkin in the background, sticking down some images that you like, drawing around them in black, it really is a really easy uh, sort of art journal technique, nothing fancy, that anyone can do, and you can create something that looks pretty good. I'm really quite happy with how this turned out. I love it. It is easy, I think, to start with black and white. We'll see how easy I find it once I do the same thing in colour. So we'll see. Which was fun. I went round her, quite a few times, and then when I turned it around to look at her, I thought, well, she needs, to look like she's moving. So just some kind of like basic movement shadow, and I was, just kept adding a bit extra, just a little bit at a time, and see how it looks before I add more. I didn't want to make it like too dark, but it really worked out well. It really does look like she's flying along. So I don't know, I just kept doing things almost intuitively. That's why I really enjoyed it, I think. I didn't have to think so much or even plan. I just did it. Very fun project. I highly recommend it. I've dried it off, and then I've got these, what are they called? I can't remember the name of these things. Sticks. Chalk sticks. I don't know. Sort of like a pastel. They've got a hard, medium, and soft. I don't like either the medium or the soft. I really only like this hard one. The other one's very charcoal. Are they charcoal sticks? Yeah, they're probably charcoal sticks. But they leave a lot of dust, and I had to clean it all up before I could continue, because otherwise I'd have black smudges coming on all the pages. And then I just smudged the edges. I didn't really want like a big black smudgy border, but just enough to frame it. So I didn't go overboard with the black smudging on the edges. I went back around the hand and the zebras with the darker aquarelle pencil, 6B I think, just to sort of exaggerate the shadow a little bit, but I'm not going to water activate it. I just wanted to define the blackness around it, because as soon as I add water it's going to dissipate the colour. Okay, I think I'm done with this one. Can't really think of a sentiment. If I think of a sentiment, I'll put one in there, or if anyone's got any suggestions. But I'm happy with that for my first spread in this journal. It's a new book. Kind of thinking about making it almost Halloween. Hardly Halloween. So I loved these zebras. I had found them for a Margarete Miller challenge, but couldn't use them in that particular one. Couldn't make it work. And also doing perhaps a bit more mixed media or art journaling, which we don't do as much of in the Margarete Miller challenge. And I just thought it might be cute to just have, just on each page that I have a go, put something in that possibly means Halloween. So it might be a bug or skeleton, or I don't know. I haven't done very much with Halloween, but I just thought it would be something different. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you join me for the next episode, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.